live on?
Live on all.
I don't have those.
You're definitely on.
I'll just keep this one with me. And these are not set back as far as they had been the original time.
This is actually.
Exactly. It looks about
Well, this
a foot forward.
No, because this I had. It looks exactly the same. It's a different, and plus it's different because it's a StreamYard map. But you can take a look, and I can guess if you hate it.
And I'm not looking at them. Gotcha.
Oh, good. Thank you, Alex.
There we go. All right. Hi, everybody. How are you guys? Hope everyone's doing well. We have good audio and
Yes, we're good.
visual here. Good.
YouTube, I'm checking.
Wonderful. So if you guys could let us know on TikTok and on YouTube if you can hear me and see me all right, that would be super helpful. We are missing a light in the back here. All right. Okay, so that's better. Yep, and as soon as I get a go ahead.
Good on top.
All right, thank you on TikTok for letting me know. Folks on YouTube, it looks like we've got, hi, Alex, Leslie, Deidre, Lydia, Look B, Vanessa, good to see you guys. Okay, good. And so we're good on visual and we're good on audio. So I'm going to give this a second for a few people to tune in before I go ahead and get started. If you guys have never tuned into one of my free mini classes before, I encourage you to post your questions and comments, and we do try to get to all of those. So if they don't fit in with the curriculum that I'm speaking about at that particular time, we'll post them. We'll just push them off to the end, and I do try to get to everybody. Want to invite you guys to check out actual full classes. For those of you that are new here, thank you very much. For those of you that are new here, I do free mini classes, 1 to 2 per week, okay, called the quarantine series since the pandemic hit. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were trapped.
Trapped. So many cords, so many cables.
I'm still at the hotel. I am still writing for the book and wrapping that up here tomorrow. So this will be a little less weird after that. We did also, great announcement, found out officially after many legal entanglements with a piece of land that I'm sure was just a foot or two. Finally, the paperwork went through for the 1800s funeral home that we bought. So leaving the hotel and getting ready to move and relocate out there. So this is going to be really exciting, and I'll be posting a lot of videos on the restoration for that place here on TikTok and YouTube. Anyways, forgot what I was saying, but you guys can post your questions, post your comments. Looks like we have a few people tuned in, so I'm just going to leave it at that. We're gonna move on and get started. I also wanted to let you guys know, though, if you follow my short stories, we're on episode number 11, time travel. Okay, so check that out. That went up, I believe, yesterday. Oh, I know what I was saying. So if you guys tune in here for the mini classes, understand that every single mini class has a full actual training. If you go to ivyleaguepsychicacademy.com, that's the school that I run. And so if you want to learn more, these mini classes are just a little taste of the information. It's not the full training. So we hope to see you over there. Are we good, Paul?
Yep.
All right. So welcome, everyone. I'm Ivy Rivera. I'm a psychic medium, a Taino Arawak, and I own a school called the Ivy League Psychic Academy, where I train people internationally, online, in everything, ranging from psychic mediumship development to tarot, Reiki, astrology, numerology, paranormal work, you name it, we do it. We train all ages, And we hope to see you guys there. The link is in the bio to the Academy. If you need to book a reading or an event with me, you can also check out the link in the bio, including paranormal consultations, which apply to what we're discussing here today. And if you don't have time to wait on a reading with me, you can check out Ivy's Healing Call Center, open 7 days a week. Graduates from the Ivy League Psychic Academy are waiting to give you a reading or a healing anytime. All right, so today's free mini class is on attachments and possessions. I normally don't care for this topic, but I've actually been feeling excited to do this one. So I'm assuming it has a lot to do with the energy that you guys are bringing, and that this may be really useful to a lot of people. And so it's helping me to feel uplifted about this topic. This is a difficult topic, obviously, but I think that it's overlooked constantly, and it is deliberately pushed aside by people in the lightworking community because nobody wants to deal with it, or people don't understand it and they don't want to admit that they don't understand it. And it is draining. It is dangerous. We are going to get in and we're going to get out. All right. And that is the best way any of us can handle this topic. And that does need to be taken literally. Okay. So let's talk about attachments and possessions, what they are, why there's such a dramatic increase going on with them right now. And we're going to talk about also the signs and symptoms that you may have this problem going on, or that you're dealing with someone who has this problem going on. Then we're going to talk about some solutions. We will be cutting out from TikTok about halfway through this, or about a quarter of the way in. So if you are here on TikTok and you want to watch the full mini class, go to my YouTube channel at Ask Ivy. And again, you guys feel free to start posting your questions or comments. Paul, my adorable producer here. How are you, Paulie?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Paul will be taking your questions and posting help that you may need here in the feed as well. Okay, and when I need my list, where's that going to be?
It's going to be on here. We just need to switch a tab.
Okay, so I'll just have you do that instead of shutting down the whole program. All right, very good. So let's talk about it, folks. Let's get into it. Let's get dirty with this. Attachments and possessions. You know, are they real? Absolutely, they're real. Is it true when people in the lightworking community say that, oh, you attract what you are, and that you shouldn't be focusing on things like this because it doesn't exist, or it's a sign that you're using law of attraction improperly, you must be toxic? Or some supposed light workers will say that it's an illusion, that there is only light, and that you're making this up. The truth of the matter is that dark energy is incredibly real, and that the planet Earth and the human experience really do seem to go hand in hand with the battle that goes on between light and dark energy. We see this in numerology, we see this in astrology, we see this in all kinds of intuitive work, we see this in daily events, we see this with our growth. The challenge between high energy versus low energy, the challenge between love and fear, the challenge between ego and enlightenment, it's everywhere. So anyone who tells you that it doesn't exist, or that you're a problem and you're attracting it, even when you're doing the best that you can, that is inaccurate. Avoid those people. Certainly stop looking to them to help you with it. They have no concept of what is really happening here. I think that a big part of the reason we are in so much trouble and we're seeing these very dramatic increases, these spikes in possession and attachment, is due to the avoidance of a willingness to take this head on, because people do feel vulnerable. Those that try to help also get attacked. So a great example of this is someone trying to book a paranormal consultation with me. I have very strict rules and guidelines. If someone is going to come and book, they have to go to the website. They have to pay for the session. And if they don't show up, if they hem and haw, it is a non-refundable situation. I am not going to be dragged in to their drama. So when we deal with this, we need to have strict boundaries. But if you are out here doing healing work, doing light work, you absolutely need to be educated and you absolutely need to be contributing. So those of us that are doing the work aren't burdened with it to this degree. So when you deal with someone who has a paranormal attachment or possession or paranormal activity in their home, you're going to want to abide by the same standards. Don't get out of your lane. If you're ill-equipped, don't try to handle it yourself. You will make it worse. If you are able to go in and help them, you need to make sure that you fully understand they are responsible for doing it themselves. We cannot come in as saviors and rescue someone from a situation like this. This is why the church has failed in exorcisms and possessions and paranormal problems. We can't just go in and be a savior to someone. The person dealing with the paranormal issue has to be the one who gets themselves free. We can only assist. We can only educate. And the person has to also maintain it afterward. We're going to break all this down here in a little bit. But essentially what I'm saying to you is this. If you're going to get involved in helping someone through the healing process, stay in your lane, set proper boundaries, and know that you are not God. You are not the savior. You cannot go in and fix it for them. This is their energy. This is their problem. You can only be a helper. Now, if you feel that you are dealing with this yourself, it's really important to properly listen today and try not to get distracted, because you're probably going to have your technology shut down. You're going to have the comment section freeze up on you. Luckily, this will be published. You will be able to access it later. If it doesn't work, I will redo it. You will find that a lot of distractions are going to start to happen to pull you away from this. What you need to do is focus. You need to listen, and you need to follow the directions that are given, especially in regards to not feeding the problem, okay, from here on forward. So when we assist, we get something called negative karmic kickback. When we decide to intervene and help someone else, whether it be our own issue, it be a family member, we get this paranormal kickback. And we have to understand that agreeing to resolve the issue, to fight it, is taken very seriously by the darker energies. They don't want to be cast out because you or whoever is suffering is a food source. So ultimately what we want to do is look at paranormal issues as being energy utilized. If anyone has ever seen the movie Monsters, Inc., I think that's really accurate. It's a Disney cartoon about these monsters who have sent their entire system of energy, electricity, and otherwise food source. Everything comes through their entire town. Their whole world is lit up by fear. It's activated and fed by the upset, the energy of children that they haunt at night. And so that's a pretty good assessment of what goes on here realistically. So when paranormal activity begins, it is for the purpose of stealing your energy. Eventually that does run the risk in certain cases, not always, but in certain cases it runs the risk of becoming an attachment, which is latching on to your, you could say, energy field, your aura, your person, so that this thing is no longer in your house. This thing is no longer messing with you occasionally and feeding off of you occasionally. It is now latched on. It is feeding off of you pretty much full time, and you have succumbed to it. Now, when we start talking about possessions, we're talking about this thing getting in. And once it is in, it can be incredibly difficult to get back out. One of the other important things to understand about attachments and possessions is that they are intelligent. It's not residual haunted energy. in my classes here on YouTube, and the class called Hauntings, Clearings, and Detachments up on my website. I talk a lot about residual energy versus intelligent energy. When we're talking about residual energy, we're talking about something that's left like an imprint. It's almost like a record on repeat. If you're intuitive, you may go into certain buildings and be able to see in your mind's eye what had once happened there, especially if there was a fire or something traumatic. For those of you who are drawn to little paranormal tours and things like this, which is not a good suggestion for most people. Be careful. This is how a lot of the problems are happening. But if you're drawn to an atmosphere like that, you may be drawn because you can reenact. You can feel and see what happened there once. It's the same with battlegrounds. A lot of people like to go off to where, a war was, and they like to stand on that land and really feel it. These are very exciting things, I suppose, until you have a paranormal attachment or you brought some kind of activity home with you because you don't know what you're doing. These aren't things that we really want to spend a lot of time entertaining. And when we talk about residual energy, we're talking about something that is non-threatening, uncomfortable as it may make you because it was unfortunate, but it's very dynamic energy replaying itself. This is why someone who lives in a haunted house may say, every day at 4 p.m., I see the lady in white walk from that side of the house to that side of the house with a small child. And she is, always dressed in her Victorian garb with carrying laundry or something. And I know, where she's going because that part of my house used to be the laundry room or the kitchen or whatever. Okay, so that's probably not her actually in an intelligent state traveling from that part of your house to the other part of your house. That is residual energy. It's like a movie on repeat. When we think of the movie The Shining, if you guys haven't watched that movie greatly depicted this aspect we're talking about right now when the cook talked to Danny in the kitchen, right? So the cook was warning Danny, the little boy who was highly intuitive. He was warning him that he should stay out of a room in the hotel where a horrific murder had occurred. And Danny said to the cook, "You're afraid of what's in that room, aren't you?" And the cook lied to him to try to help him be more comfortable in the situation, to be less fearful, to not feed it what it wanted. But he really shouldn't have. So the cook lied to Danny and he said, "You know what, Danny? Some things are like burnt toast." He said some things leave a story, a trace of themselves. And this hotel has a lot of stories. A lot of things happened here, and not all of them were good. And that's all it is. It's okay, basically, but stay out of that room. Well, it was not residual energy, as the cook said. It was intelligent, active energy. And when you're dealing with something intelligent, you are at risk for being the source of whatever it is, looking for, as is your family and your animals, okay? So we normally see a problem begin in the home or attached to an individual, and then it spreads throughout the house. So the first ones that get attacked are typically the animals. You may see that all the fish have died or the hamsters are just dropping and you can't keep replacing them fast enough. It's an unusual rate. Maybe the dog has started to pee in the kitchen when normally, they would be comfortable in the house and like waiting to go outside. So we see a lot of bathroom problems. We also see animals won't go in certain areas of the house where the activity is coming from. And we would notice this with, cats as well as dogs, a fear of the basement or a fear of a certain bedroom. So there's an unwillingness to work with the space. You may feel that your animal's not only getting sick, but is acting very odd and is nervous to let you go and cries a lot. So you may have to change things. You guys can always book a paranormal consultation with me or a pet reading. This is important. You need to change things. Paul, put that in the comments, please. With their environment, even after you cleanse, you may want to leave like lights on or some soft music on. You're going to have to make it a nice space for them again after trauma like this, because we don't forget easily, especially the animals who absorb it. Now, after they attack the animals, they typically go to any men in the house. And the men are most susceptible because, sorry guys, not to, stigma here, but stigmatize, but men are pretty blockheaded about this kind of stuff. They tend to say, oh, I don't believe in intuition. This is ridiculous. Well, then they're going to be attacked first, and they go down really hard and really fast. So what we would typically see with the men in the house is a lot of what would look like mental illness, drug and alcohol abuse, anger, rage, deterioration, mental deterioration, so much so that they are at high risk for being fired from their job or laid off or, something like that. And we frequently see, because of what happens with the men in the house, that divorces follow rather quickly, typically within a year, 2 years at the most. Next up are the children. The children, what you would see is a resistance to sleeping at night in their beds, in their bedrooms. If you've ever seen, what was it, The Conjuring, I believe it was, and I interviewed one of the daughters twice on my old radio show. You may want to go back and watch that. But it's way back on YouTube. Andrea, I believe, Andrea Perrin. Anyways, if you watch the movie The Conjuring, now The Conjuring was based on a true story, and it was Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were paranormal researchers, God bless them, rest their souls, but they would have gone out and investigated this as one of their cases, and we see this movie that came out a few years ago that I feel is done pretty well. I know not all the family members agree with that. But I think for this topic that we're on today, I would say it was done pretty well in representing the process, at least, and what some of these phases of attachment and possession and haunting in the house would have looked like, especially in regards to the kids, because it showed how the children are selected and are attacked almost, in such an incessant way that it steals their rest, because they are so vulnerable. If we think of children who don't know a lot in the world and aren't adults and can't protect themselves and can't make a lot of their own decisions, we watch that deterioration happen so rapidly. And what we need to remember about being attacked, especially at night, which is, the main thing with the kids, is that they don't get any rest. That's our sacred time. That's our sacred space. And when you don't get any sleep, you become physically, mentally, emotionally, and yes, energetically, spiritually susceptible to something that's just a haunting becoming an attachment or a possession. All right. So last in line are the women. So the women are typically the last to be attacked. The women, you will typically see this is where it ends, because you could say it's women's intuition. You could say it's the divine feminine. You could say whatever you want about it. But women have also historically entertained ideas like this more, and are full of great common sense and understanding that there are many hidden energies and languages going on in the universe. And so because we're so in tuned to that, we tend to have a very low tolerance for this kind of nonsense going on in our homes. And when we can't logically figure out answers to why, the husband or the son, the animals, the children, why everyone's upset, why is this happening in so many different areas, we're more open to automatically go to this. And so the intervention can occur before it becomes too late and nearly irreversible. So the women come last. When we see this happening with the women, it's usually, not so much of a physical attack on them as it is a mental and emotional attack, because everyone else around them is being affected. Women are pretty quick to catch on when something actually tries to encounter them directly. And so again, intelligent energy, spirits that are there, or entities that are there to attack, they're not stupid. They're not going to go right for her because she's going to quickly deal with it. They're going to go for everybody else and tear her down that way. And that steals her sleep, that steals her rest. Ultimately, she becomes downtrodden because she's not recuperating, and she will then be susceptible to attacks also at night and then mentally. One of the things we want to watch for with women tend to be more clairaudient than men. And so clairaudience is the ability to hear in your mind's, to see in your mind's eye, or to hear literally as though it is your own thought, messages coming from spirit, right? So when we think of clairvoyance, we're thinking of images in our head. We're thinking of visions. When we're talking about clairaudience, we're talking about hearing things in our mind. Now, because it doesn't always come in someone else's voice, we don't identify it at all. We tend to think that was just toxic thinking, or I'm really struggling with depression, or why am I thinking all these toxic negative thoughts about myself, or why am I becoming paranoid? And so when we're attacked through clairaudience, we may start to blame other people for doing things that they didn't do. We may become suspicious. We may think that we're developing telepathy, but it's actually this. That people are out to get us, a lot of deterioration in regards to self-esteem, repetitive, toxic, cyclical thinking, and a lot of trouble controlling it, again, because technically that wasn't your thought. It came from outside influence. Now, don't get me wrong, those who have clairaudient ability, if they are well-trained, they use discernment, they fully are educated on what it is, and they're in control. Clairaudience is an amazing ability to have. It's an amazing talent and one of the greatest levels of intuitive intelligence, because that's what mediums do. That's how we channel, and we can, say what someone else from the spirit world wants to say. But when it's not healing and it is toxic, it's going to take you down rather quick. All right, so that's one of the other things that we may see with women. And in general, these could crisscross through anyone. Okay, so this is a generalization. I do want to talk about maybe one more thing here, and then we are going to switch off from TikTok. Again, I just want to say to TikTokers, if you wanted to watch this full class, you do need to switch over to YouTube here at Ask Ivy in a minute. All right, so let's review that real quick. What are they? What is attachments? What are attachments? What are possessions? And how are they different? An attachment is still on the outside. A possession has gotten in. Okay. So why are we seeing such an increase with this? Well, the truth of the matter is, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, people are feeding it. If we have a paranormal problem, it doesn't mean necessarily that we conjured it. We could have moved into a house that had a paranormal problem. We may be working in a workplace where the land has a paranormal issue. Someone next to us at the office may have a paranormal problem, and we brought that home accidentally. Maybe you went on one of these paranormal tours with one of these clowns running it, and they don't know how to protect themselves. They're certainly not going to protect you. They're making a ton of cash. You're bringing it home to your family. These are things where we sort of unwittingly take these things home. However, most of the time, and why I'm seeing such a major increase out there, especially in our American society today, is due to the fact that people are feeding negativity, and you can only feed negativity for so long before you develop problems like this. And we see that people are feeding predominantly, I'm talking about hatred, paranoia, fear. So when we look at things like conspiracy theories, and I'm not saying some of them may not be true, but when we look at ridiculous stuff that's out there today, like QAnon, okay? Some of you may want to tune out right now because you've got paranormal problems and you're all about QAnon. This isn't the time for you to do that, but do what you will. You can lead a horse to water. It is being fed rapidly by this incessant need to pollute our minds, to pollute our energy, to find a belonging. Okay, a lot of people who are feeding, whether it be hatred, racism, conspiracy theories, they are so desperate to find a community of people and to maybe even get to be a leader within that community that they have basically sold their souls off to the devil. And that's exactly what happens when you have rejected the light, you have repeatedly chosen dark over light, you have repeatedly gone low instead of high, you have given up your self-power, you've given up your ability to think critically, and you are now seeing that this thing has taken over and you don't want to admit that it's there. You don't want to ask for help, or let's face it, there's not enough help out there. And so reversing it really isn't happening for most people. And if we don't catch these things early, it gets trickier and trickier to clean up. The other reason I see such a major increase is that people, like what I just described, are polluting other people in their energy field. And these people unwittingly are absorbing it. We have an increase with empathic ability. See my class, empathic awareness training. Because of the awakening, 2019, 2020, 2021, because of the pandemic and all of the issues with racial injustice and police brutality internationally, not even just here in America. We think of like George Floyd. The movements that have been going on have triggered an awakening internationally. So everyone has increased with their intuitive intelligence, which makes them more susceptible to this negative energy. But they are also more susceptible as empathic ability has increased. Empaths are the most open to negative energies coming to steal that high vibration energy. Remember, you're a food source, so you're the highest level of food source, but also you're surrounded by people who are vampires, who are toxic, who are needy, who are full of hate. And this energy can also easily drain you or latch on to you. So we have a few different reasons for these increases. I will tell you, I've trained 4 people in the last couple months just to help me take on this workload. And it's becoming really disturbing to watch the way it spreads like wildfire. And we need to be educated for ourselves, for our own self-protection, but to help others around us who may be unwittingly susceptible to negative energies around them and those that are directly feeding it. When we think of the Hopi prophecy, where they spoke about, the downfall of humanity, and those that are not connected to the light or the spirit world will go dark, will go mentally ill, and will end up in this condition. That's what we're looking at right now. Absolutely 100%. Okay, so we don't have to be taken down with it. We could deal with it. And even if you have been making a lot of mistakes, we're going to talk right now about what that might look like for you and how you can get an upper hand. I do want to get into the list of symptoms here and tune out from TikTok. Again, those of you tuning in through TikTok, switch over to YouTube at this time at Ask Ivy. Thanks. And after you do that, I will have you switch this for me.
You got it.
All right. Well, we have more people tuned in than I thought we would.
It's been busy, yeah.
That's good. That's
a lot of good questions, too.
Oh, good. I was just going to say, in case you guys are tuning in a little bit late, feel free to post your questions and comments.
You need that? You need a picture?
Can I have it?
Oh, yeah.
Is this a touch screen?
It is.
Okay. So if I could just have it, then it's big enough. That's fine.
That has the full list on it right now. So
Okay, very
you
good.
don't have to scroll.
All right. All right, again, for the full training on this, you guys can go to Hauntings, Clearings, and Detachments class up on my website. And I think we have a free mini class here as well on cleansing. And then I did another one on hauntings, but that was more about houses and things like that. So you can check these things out. But this is something I talk about in the real curriculum, the Hauntings, Clearings, Detachments class. And I did want to pull this in today. So important to understand what the heck this might look like if it's happening. And this is whether it's happening in the attachment stage or the full-on possession stage. You may see different pieces of this go on at different times. All right, signs and symptoms of attachment or possession. Number 1, you feel chronically exhausted. You literally cannot recoup your energy level due to the things I spoke about earlier, especially in regards to sleep and how that's being stripped from you. Okay, but also the mental exhaustion, worrying about family members, why are pets dying, things like this. The toxic thinking, if you are clairaudient or you're clairvoyant, being affected that way as well. There are a million ways that you'll be affected. We don't have time to get into it here. But feeling chronically exhausted. Number 2, mood swings and impulsive behavior. So this is something that you would notice, especially with the men who are being affected. People always like to say, well, women are moody. Women are actually not moody compared to men, I would say. And women aren't, super emotional compared to men or any of this. And so we need to be very realistic about men who appear to be going through mood swings or bouts of anger and rage. Because men don't deal with their emotions a lot in especially our society, that's not allowed. We see them deteriorate rapidly in this particular area because they have no practice with it. They just don't know how to maintain oneself. And so mood swings, impulsive behavior, including falling off maybe the wagon, getting back into drinking, drug use, making rash decisions with money, spending, anything like that, being out of sorts. Okay, let's look at number 3. A deep sadness, feeling disassociated from loved ones, and paranoia, feeling like someone is out to get you, terrible foreboding, or like the other shoe's going to drop. Number 4, hearing inner voices. Now, I want to clarify that if you are clairaudient, you may not hear them in other people's voices. It may not sound like some evil, sinister monster talking to you. It could literally just seem like your own thought. However, a lot of people who have developed an attachment or a possession will hear it in the voice of the thing, okay? And you may hear multiple voices. Number 5, reflecting back on your own words or actions and thinking, was that me? Did I do that? Did that actually happen? Now, this isn't the same as blacking out, but we would see similar elements there where it's like you really can't believe that you did or said that thing. And part of the reason you can't believe it is because you literally don't recall the thought process. You literally were not present in that moment. It's like something else took over you, okay? Or your body or your mouth, your thoughts, whatever. So being absent and wondering, why? Did I say, did I do that? This isn't me. Okay, and not being able to stop it. So that's another really important aspect of this, is that you may feel as though you cannot stop what you're doing, even if you know it's a terrible idea. All right, that leads us into number 6. Paul, help me with the math here because I'm going to forget at some point. I ran the risk. These are not numbered. These are bulleted. I don't know what possessed me to do it this way. Okay, now I'm stuck. So, all right, so number 6. Talk about not being able to stop what you started. So number 6 is about the blackouts that I was just referring to. And one of the things that people often complain about is not drinking, not using any kind of street drugs, not even being high from smoking a little bit of pot or having a new prescription drug. Literally, there was nothing affecting them, but they all of a sudden would come to and they were in front of the bathroom mirror, or they were sitting in their bedroom when they thought they had been in the living room, or heaven forbid, this is happening in traffic. Now, a lot of us zone out in traffic and we get somewhere and we're like, oh my God, how am I alive? It's not that, okay? It's like literally having no recollection of how you got to where you are and not being able to retrace your steps. That is a blackout, right? And it could be this. Now, if you think of a possession that would come to and take over your body, then it wasn't you. You were absent during that time. So that's a major red flag. 7, addictive behaviors. I'm talking about developing a porn addiction, food addiction, drug and alcohol use, being obsessed with the internet. Watch out, conspiracy theorists, I'm warning you. Being obsessed with video games, anything that could pull you away in a habitual, out of control sense into this almost like a tunnel, this time suck. And you are feeling as though you didn't do it consciously. You are now trapped and can't stop. And it's obviously toxic for you. Even if you're hiding it, it is deteriorating your life, your relationships, your ability to function. Number 8, having poor memory or an inability to concentrate, feeling confused a lot of the time. Yes, we all go from that. We all go through that from time to time. That's true. But I'm talking about this energy overtaking you where all of a sudden you were fine and now you feel like you have to lay down. You are dizzy. You are confused. All you were doing was writing out some bills and you literally cannot figure out what the heck you were doing. You are incapable of finishing the work at your job, simple tasks that you've been good at doing in the past. You can't remember things. Not the same as a blackout per se, but it's like your brain won't function. It's like parts of your brain will not connect in the way that they used to. Number 9, heaviness in your chest or your shoulders. So that could be pressure here in the chest. That could be due to something called old hag syndrome, which I believe I talk about in the other free mini class we did here. But old hag syndrome can sit on your chest and steal your energy. That's not an attachment or possession. But if you feel that something is trying to get in here or here, sometimes people feel a lot of pain in the ear or in the temple. It could be that. Having a lot of burning in the back of your neck, in your shoulders, heaviness on the shoulders. A lot of people who have an attachment will start to see that they have back problems after that. So it's like this pressing weight. Number 10, sudden onset of anxiety, depression, or nausea. Now, for those of you who've ever gone on a paranormal tour and it was an actual real tour of something, heaven forbid, like a prison or, a mental institution, somewhere where people were tortured, you probably threw up. If you're highly sensitive, you may have vomited in the car or on the lawn, before you even got in there. And if anything approached you, or even if you were just reading the residual energy off the atmosphere, you may have found yourself quite sick while you were in the building. Most people get dizzy and you run the risk of passing out, all kinds of things. This is also sometimes a sign that you're not just reacting to the residual energy of the space, but something intelligent is trying to get in or attach. So the anxiety can come along with that. I don't want to overreact about the anxiety. I tell my students all the time, and I just did some TikToks on this. Intuition causes anxiety. So I can't prescribe or diagnose. If you have actual anxiety, you're going to want to go see your therapist, your doctor about the trauma there. But you may see that you have anxiety attacks just from being mediumistic or psychic or empathic, and that's not at all an issue. But when we see it in this instance, it could be a sign that you are under attack. Your body's physically reacting to that paranormal attack with an anxiety episode, an anxious episode. Depression in this case is something you really cannot shake. You know, if you didn't have depression, if you're not a depressive individual and you don't have anything in your life occurring that might cause that, but all of a sudden you're showing such severe symptoms, you're wondering if you're even bipolar or something is really wrong, you may seek some kind of medical or therapeutic attention. And while they're usually pretty happy to prescribe and diagnose something, I think that a lot of times they can't even figure it out. And it could very well be this. Okay, so it's depression that you cannot shake, and it's almost like you're down and you don't come back up. There is no upswing. Let's look at number 11. Sudden onset of phobias, occurrence of panic attacks. So developing almost OCD-like symptoms and phobias to random things. It could be anything. I think that a lot of people develop this with like a social anxiety or not wanting to go to certain places, and that could be a sign that something's happening here. Nightmares. Okay, number 12, nightmares. We already talked about that. I don't really want to get into that, but I do want to just point this one thing out. There's a big difference between having a nightmare because maybe your boss really sucks and you do not want to go back and you don't want to face the fact that you need to leave your job. Okay, well, that's going to cause nightmares because you are subconsciously dealing with stressful issues that you have during your daytime waking hours that aren't being resolved. But there's a big difference between a nightmare that comes from your own self, your subconscious, versus a nightmare that is coming because you're being attacked by some kind of lower, darker energy in your bedroom, or you have actual night terrors because they're actually affecting your mind. Okay, so big difference. Pay attention to the patterns there. Number 13, a sensation of being watched. That speaks for itself. It doesn't just happen at night. Usually if it's an attachment or a possession, or it's trying to be, you would notice that it isn't just this weird waking up between 3 and 5:30 in the morning, the haunting hour, and feeling like something's staring at me or something just said my name. It's bigger than that. It's like you're being watched when you're trying to watch TV. You're being watched when you're in the shower. It's very, very creepy. And you know somebody's there. You know it's happening. The last one is 14, areas of cold pockets in your house, really cold, almost to like a freezing point, okay, where it has no business belonging. Maybe it's very warm outside and all of a sudden you walk in and it's like you just walked into the freezer and you don't know where on earth the cold air is coming from. A sense of uneasiness in not only your home, feeling like something's wrong or something bad is about to happen, like something suspicious is there, but you don't see it, but also having an uneasiness with your own self. There's no worse feeling, am I right, than feeling uncomfortable in your own skin. I think back to being a teenager and going through a lot of changes and not knowing, who you are yet and just feeling as though you're in some kind of weird discord within yourself. It's sort of like that, but you can't get out of it. Something is wrong and it's internal. Having a sense of something threatening, waiting for you. Okay, so it's that feeling that the other shoe is about to drop and it is like a sinister activity, almost like a game. You're being attacked. There is a bigger reason for this. It's not just life, and life can sometimes have bumps in the road, and it's guaranteed that that will happen. This is something deliberately waiting for you to let your guard down or coming to hurt you in some capacity, ruin your prosperity, your relationships. Okay, and you know it. Basically, all that is that you know it intuitively that it's happening. You just don't have any proof. Okay, so these are some of the things that we talk about in the hauntings class. That's what we have time to talk about today. I do want to talk real quick about what to do, and we're going to get to your questions. Okay, so what can you do? If you are not familiar with how to fix something like this, I do not recommend that you try to do it on your own. You are going to want to be very careful about who you reach out to for help. and understand that if you were to reach out to the Catholic Church, for example, you're going to have to go through all kinds of testing. You're going to have to prove that it's not psychological. They're going to have to rule out all types of things. By the time they get there, it's usually too late, and they don't really know what they're doing anyways. It's really an unproductive system in regards to, the church. And then we have a more unproductive people out there who maybe claim that they work in paranormal. That does not make them intuitive, and it does not make them capable of fighting this. They typically go in and stir the pot and make it 100 times worse than what it had to be. Don't forget, they don't live there. You do. And it's not their body. It's yours. And this isn't their family. It's yours. And so you want to think of people's motives. Whether it's to get paid or it's to get fame or it's to have a great episode of their show and their black t-shirts or whatever. Okay, so just be very careful who you deal with. Then we have, other people who are well-intentioned, who maybe use like native techniques to cleanse. But if you're not native, or if it's not a native root of your problem, that's not going to fix it. So then we have a lot of people that are uneducated on how exactly to fix it. So the way that I handle these things is through chaos magic. I treat each situation individually for what it is. I have to understand it, use my mediumistic abilities, understand what its plans are for you and your family, how it plans to attack, how everyone's being affected, and then we treat it accordingly. And so I would recommend booking a paranormal consultation with me or some of the people that I have trained, true light workers here at the Academy. We have don't we have it up on the call center at this point? So Ivy's Healing Call Center open 7 days a week. We do now offer paranormal consultations. We also offer them a lot at our monthly psychic fairs. So that's another option for you. But you need to be prepared to handle it with a trusted individual. And on this note, I want to say this. You need to also, number 2, be involved. You cannot call someone to rescue you from this. And you have to understand that it is about your willingness and your readiness to fight. Most people who end up with a possession were at some point willing to give themselves over to it. Okay, or even an attachment. You can't be friends with this thing. You can't keep up with your old toxic negative habits, whether that's, drinking or drug use, or, different addictions. You need to get outside therapy and work on, really cleaning up the root issues that are attracting this problem and be willing to fight the fight. It is so sad to see that so many possessions, many of them happen. We see a high level within certain communities. I'm Puerto Rican, so I understand this, due to, I think, a lot of paranoia, superstitious thinking. But then we see other groups of people that are really susceptible to it, like people who were sexually assaulted or were molested as children. We also see those that have suffered severe neglect or physical abuse. They are also susceptible. So there are certain groups of people with certain beliefs or who have gone through certain things that would stand out, more than others. And so I'm speaking to you, you need to also look at your roots. You need to look at the belief system and the programming that you were raised around, and you need to look at any trauma that has occurred and understand that it does put you at a high risk level for the actual possession, because you may have at some point, even unwittingly, adopted this thing, this entity, this negative energy, because it originally presented itself to you as a friend, as a savior, as maybe even a guide that was keeping you safe, from all the evil in the world, and you were mistaken to have befriended it or allowed it in that far. Okay, so number 2, those of you that are dealing with this, you have got to be involved and be ready to fight that fight. I can't come in and do it for you. It's also really important, let's move on to number 3, that you do not digress. If you are going to do this and cleanse it or go through, whether it be an exorcism, you need to understand that you are putting at risk whoever is coming in to assist you. So a great example of this is, we have a requirement. As soon as someone books a paranormal consultation with me, Paul is required to notify me immediately, because as soon as they decided, before they even made that phone call to book it, I go under attack. And so I have to schedule things accordingly and be prepared to protect myself extensively. So whoever you involve, you're taken down with you. If you are going to fight it, fight it. If you're not, then stop talking about it, stop feeding it with fear, and stop toying with it, and stop dragging it into, especially in regards to this, the discussion of it or feeding it through horror movies. You know, a lot of people have paranormal problems and they linger and they go on forever and they get worse because they love it. They love the drama. They love the mystique of this whole thing. And it's something that they entertain. And sadly, even if it does get dangerous and they clean it up, they often go back to those habits. So do not digress. Continue on with whatever the treatment plan is and keep the energy clean and high. That also requires that you change your social habits if you're around a bunch of people who do the same thing, or even if you reside with others who witness the problem, they are now part of the healing process and they can often be problematic. So you can have one person in your house who is the problem or is feeding the problem, and often you have to move away and leave them there or kick them out or something like this. Boundaries have got to be set. You can't go down with the ship. And that's really hard in regards also to children. Okay. All right. Do we have questions or comments? Okay.
Quite a bit, yeah. This is a really great show, and I do want to stress that people who have specific issues that they're putting up here definitely get paranormal consultation. As soon as you can, if you're really feeling this.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a comment here from Sonia.
Okay.
It says, I worked at a cemetery 2 weeks ago. I was so drained and felt like I could manage the work without bringing anything home, but I think that wasn't the case.
Okay.
Which then leads us to a question here from Chad.
Okay.
Says, so is visiting graveyards to visit our loved ones not a good idea because attachments can occur?
Well, no. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I think it's all a matter of how aware you are and how well you're protecting yourself and what exactly you're there to entertain. So in regards to Sonia's experience, is it possible that you were there and you weren't as protected as you thought you were, or you hit a pocket of negative energy and your guard was down at that time? The fact that you were there for 2 weeks, it sounds like repeatedly, of course, makes you more susceptible to something like this happening versus what was his name? Chad is referring to, where it's like, going and visiting a loved one's grave. Well, you're going with the intention to specifically speak to that loved one. You're coming from a high place of love, and it's encouraged because your loved one, if they've crossed over into the light, they want to interact with you. And so it's based on positivity. You're also probably going in and out. I doubt you spent the night there, you probably didn't bring your sleeping bag. Some people like to picnic and things like that. But, if you were just even there to say hello and then left, no, that's not going to be an issue for you. But in Sonia's case, we're looking at a very different scenario. We're talking 2 weeks is a long time to be in and out of an atmosphere like that. And it's not uncommon to see that you could bring something home. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Leslie says, my 3-year-old has been looking very upset, and I right away feel like maybe a spirit is attacking her energy, but I just started working. Can it be because I'm working, or is the spirit really attacking?
Well, again, I mean, I think if it gets worse, you're going to need to book a paranormal consultation so I can take a serious look at this. But I would say that, her being fearful, her being just a normal kid watching you leave, again, could be feeding the energy that a paranormal lower energy would be attracted to. So the answer is sort of both. It's not uncommon to see that a child goes through some kind of change and we develop paranormal problems in our house, or someone gets sick and they're going through some level of pain and grief and we develop paranormal problems in our house. Also the same thing with fighting. Okay, so we have to look at any kind of change that would be upsetting to anyone residing there. And if they really are struggling with it, then it's possible that it's attracting an increase in activity to steal that energy. Remember, that's their food source.
Okay. This one from Yvonne.
Okay.
Can an attachment make injury or surgery not heal and keep you in constant pain?
Absolutely. Yep. For sure. So one of the things that I, didn't get into, because that's part of the full curriculum up on the website, is the way that you could be physically attacked. And we're talking about, bruises, we're talking about scratches, all kinds of things, hair pulling, and there are a million other signs that this is going on. But I would definitely say, again, like I just said to the last woman, Leslie, who asked about her daughter, some things that activate paranormal is going through an illness or an injury. And often what happens during that time is that we are put on medications and we are set still. We're told to sit still in one spot. Well, so between the medications, the altered states, maybe the depression, the pain, all of those things, those feelings, you accumulate a lot of energy in one spot. And so it's almost like having a target on yourself. And I will say this, I get a lot of ladies in their 70s and their 80s, and they say, listen, ma'am, I never thought in a million years, I'm Catholic. I never thought I'd be talking to someone like you, but I need help. There is something going on in my house. I dealt with one woman who had, she was being physically attacked and her dresses were cut and there was, coffee being spilled every day and her cabinets had been scratched. And I always know, I say, did your husband just get sick or have a surgery or break his hip or something? And it's always a yes, always. There's always someone in the house. So absolutely, that is possible. And again, it's one of these situations where you didn't do anything wrong, but you're vulnerable and you do need to cleanse and then set proper boundaries. Keep it clean, especially during your recovery. And afterward, you're going to have to maintain and be on higher alert than you have been in the past. Yeah.
Okay, this one's from Jennifer.
Okay.
If you're clairaudient, are you connected throughout the day, or is this a type of possession?
Is clairaudience possession? No, I wouldn't say it's possession. When we talk about being clairaudient, we're just talking about thoughts going in your head. And so everyone has clairaudience to some degree, meaning a lot of people's thoughts aren't their own and people just aren't in tune to this and they don't know the difference. And we are all open vessels. That's why I say people are nothing more than wide open channels waiting to be manipulated in the world. The only people who aren't being manipulated to that degree are people that are very mindful of their energy, know this language, and are educated. There is similarity, I guess, between having a spirit full on come into your body and possess you and make you do things and say things, versus, and this having your mind manipulated. But by no means would I consider them to be the same thing. Okay.
And this one's from Rose.
Okay.
How do you protect yourself?
Well, there are a million ways to protect yourself, but again, through chaos magic, through a paranormal consultation, if you need that, through education, it has to be protection that you use specifically for the problem that you're having. If you're being attacked, by an 8-year-old kid at the grocery store versus a grown man, you're going to handle the kid differently than you would handle a grown man, for example. So you want to understand what's happening before you can really treat it. However, in a very general way, you want to go back to what I said in category number 3 when I spoke earlier about the increases that we're seeing in the world, especially in America, how paranormal activity is running rampant and attachments and possessions are increasing to a sickening height. And you want to avoid all those things I discussed there: hatred, racism, paranoia, addictions, conspiracies, all of it. Stay away from any of that. And of course, we all want to avoid, injury, illness, things like this make us more susceptible. But ultimately, in your day-to-day life, stay away from fear, stay away from ego, stay away from anger, stay away from toxic thinking. You are prone to having paranormal problems if you are making yourself available as a sort of a toxic cesspool for these things that would be very comfortable residing there. Mm-hmm. Okay.
This one is from Look B.
Look B. Okay.
What do you recommend doing if you believe a sibling is dealing with it?
Well, if you think someone in your circle is dealing with it, you can confront it, of course, but be educated in the way that you confront it. Take my class, maybe suggest or gift them the class, and let them know that you're there to help them, that you think this is what it is. But you also have to be reasonable that in doing so, the kickback may start coming onto you as the helper, because you are now a threat to that dark energy that wants to use your sibling as a food source. So like taking candy away from a child, you're not going to be welcomed after that. And you may even see that reaction from your sibling. They may stop welcoming you. And so if it's gotten bad, your sibling may attack you and resent you for it, like you're taking their friend away. And it's not going to make any logical sense. But you can offer help. Ultimately, you have to say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. I've done my part. Stay in your lane and don't feed it with extra fear, negative, thought patterns. You're only going to make yourself more susceptible to problems. And they do like to latch on to family members and friends and people from the inner tribe. So everyone around your sibling is susceptible now. And I think the other thing is, if it gets serious enough and your sibling is willing to get help, book a paranormal consultation with me or someone through the call center or Paul, and get it dealt with in a really specific way, off like a Band-Aid. Okay.
Another from Yvonne. Is it dangerous to have readings if you have an attachment?
Is it dangerous to have readings? For your reader, if your reader is not properly trained. I train my students in discernment. I train them thoroughly in protection. I train them thoroughly in cleansing. I train them thoroughly in protecting their other clients from clients who have attachments and possessions. There's a lot to it, but I do not believe most readers are trained properly. I don't think most readers know what they're doing, especially in regards to this, again, because nobody talks about it. So are you putting yourself in danger getting a reading? Probably not you, but you're putting your reader, and then you're putting other people in danger who would be read by that reader afterward. Okay, well, that wraps it up for today. I hope this was helpful, guys. And I will see you for next week's free mini class called, what is it?
Next week is, I had it written down here.
But it's Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Wednesday at 8 p.m. It is psychology, therapy, and spirituality.
Psychology, therapy, and spirituality. Next week's free mini class. And again, if you guys do need to book with me for a regular reading or paranormal, whatever, go to IvyRiveraPsychicMedium.com. We do appreciate donations. And please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Do post below any suggested classes you would like to see in the future. And if you want to become a member, hit that join button to look at the 3 tiers for extras. Thank you, Polly.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Spirit. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.